This is happiness, to be everything at once. Be unblinded, be unlearned, be unbridled and unburned.
Hey everyone, welcome back to a brand new episode of Mood Prep. My name is Dave Nixon, and today we're going to continue on with the coaching commandments. These are the 15 coaching commandments that I use to I suppose, communicate to other coaches and trainers about ways that they can deliver their content better and with a deeper perspective of taking in the client that's in front of them, but not just the client, but the client's life conditions and everything else associated with that. So we're going to move on to number 12 today, called Honey or Vinegar. Now, old mate Gary Vaynerchuk talks about building a honey empire, right? And I get it. I like it. Honey's meant to be sweet. It's about being sweet and giving feedback in a manner that's sweet, as opposed to vinegar, which vinegar is packs a punch. Hey, it doesn't hurt. You don't really take vinegar personally, but vinegar itself is a lot more of a interrupt than honey. Now, the reason why I went with honey or vinegar is because we have to know when to offer honey as feedback, and we have to know when to offer vinegar as feedback. And not everyone's going to actually respond with the same. I've had people in the past where vinegar it doesn't matter how much rapport, it just turns them down. I mean, depending on the stage of the relationship, of course, but for more often than not, they require constant honey. It's like they're a diabetic or something. But either way, my point there being is that they're requiring this softness approach, this certain level of not going and sort of tiptoeing around or stepping on eggshells. It's just this ability to communicate to the person from a really caring and empathetical space. And whereas some people you can communicate with very abruptly and short, and they know that you're coming from that space. So a sign of a good coach and a good leader is knowing when and to whom to distill this idea of honey or vinegar. Now, some people they really struggle with giving this forward information, this forward feedback. However, sometimes interrupting somebody's pattern is one of the most powerful things you can do. In fact, the more honey you give them, the more you turn them into this fitness diabetic that just never really breaks the fuck out of their own patterns. And so the ability to provide vinegar within a coaching framework and coaching feedback is actually one of the most powerful things we can do if it's delivered at the right time. Now, usually the best time to deliver feedback that is doused in vinegar is actually straight after a joke, which is interesting, right? Because when you can create some sort of relaxed environment, which often laughter provides, you're able to then speak right through to the fucking person. It's really quite interesting. And if you don't believe me, you're more than welcome to. If you've got a couple of good jokes up your sleeve, then you're more than welcome to try it. But the whole point there being is that the vinegar is able to penetrate significantly faster and more concise, to the actual point that you're making as well. Now, it doesn't mean that you are abrupt or rude to the individual. You can really deliver this splash of vinegar in your feedback in a really loving and caring way. And that's where rapport and relationship and pacing and leading that I spoke to earlier in one of the other podcasts comes into benefit, because you're able to actually have this rapport where it's look, here's an example where I might use it. Look, Daniel, I'm making someone up. Daniel. God damn it, Daniel. Damn, Daniel. Look, Daniel, you've got two options here. One option, you take this opportunity down here and you thank yourself in 12 months. The other option is you go back and you keep doing the same thing and we have the same conversation in 12 months. You've got a decision to make. That's on you. I don't know which one's the best one or the right one for you. That's up to you to make. But my offer for you is to make that decision, rather than beating around the bush like we have been for the last hour. That's something that, for example, may be an opportunity to give the person a black and white insight, so they're actually able to see the options and make a decision. Now, I don't care which decision they make. In fact, I've had this in another coaching format with the developmental coaching that I do, where with a particular client, I was like, look, make a decision. either way, you can do it was actually about the Red Pill Project. You can do the Red Pill Project or not. And they were very indecisive about it. And at that point, it's like whichever decision you make to do it or not is they're going to be the right decision. The most key thing for them is that they're going to make a decision. So for me, it's like not that whether I wanted them to do the Red Pill Project or not was irrelevant. What was the most important thing for their development was their ability to make a decision and trust and back themselves. The outcome of the decision was nowhere near as important as them actually supporting the decision they're going to make, regardless of which way they're going to go. So with that in mind, the ability to really offer up a black and white option is really beneficial, but it's also just as beneficial to offer up a menu of options for the client to be able to make a decision with as well, or let them brainstorm. So what are the options that you see, right? Let them come up with them. And the ability to sort of go through and do all of this from a coaching perspective is really allowing this idea that you're not right, you're not correct. As a coach, you can only provide the insight and information that you can see through your lens. You're not the fucking be-all and end-all. You're not the truth. You have a truth, but you're not the truth. And that's where this idea of there's three sides to every story. There's my truth and your truth, or my side and your side, and then the truth, right? And so when we're able to actually invite this information through what we can see, what we can sense, and then provide the feedback objectively, right? And to really learn to remove our bias from that feedback and just provide it objectively, then in that space, we have the opportunity to allow the individual, the client or the athlete or the employee to take that information and do whatever the fuck they want to do with it. I'm not responsible for what they do with that information. I'm not responsible if they take it personally. I'm not responsible for any of that sort of stuff. That's their responsibility. I'm responsible for how I deliver it. Now, how I deliver it does influence the way that they receive it, but I'm not responsible for how they receive it. And that's a really important thing to pay attention to, of what's in my circle of responsibility and what's in my circle of influence, and then just what's outside of my circle of responsibility. So taking all that into account, we now have the opportunity to assess the situation, assess an individual, assess our relationship and rapport, am I pacing with them, and then from there be able to provide how I want to provide the information that I want to give, the feedback that I want to give, because feedback is simply just feeding back what you can see objectively, and a coach's role is to really be able to point where to look without telling them what to see. Right? Let me just re-say that again. Re-say it. I've never said re-say it. I just resaid it. That a coach's role is to point where to look, but not tell them what to see. And that's one of the most powerful things. And when a coach can really do that, they're allowing the client, athlete, and employee the opportunity to fucking step up and own whatever the fuck they can see, right? Because they'll see whatever they're ready to see, rather than being shamed for not seeing what they, in inverted commas, should be seeing or should be looking at, or whatever the case might be. The coach is there to point at. It's up to the client to be able to see it. And whatever they can see is a reflection of where they're at. And that's perfectly fine. They're at exactly where they need to be at. And on that note, team, I'm done. If you found this podcast beneficial, it would mean the world to me if you'd pass it on to someone else that you think would also find it beneficial. If you haven't already, the Facebook community, get amongst it. It's on the Facebook community. Fuck. How many times? Mood Prep community on Facebook. I'd love to see you in there. Team, I'm out. Until tomorrow, peace and pizza. Kick today in the dick. Slay the dragon. I'll see you soon.
To be everything at once, be unblinded, be unlearned, be unbridled and unburned.